guy living in the middle of the state of Michigan. And so I looked, found out that Dart Container and Dart, the little cups, you turn the cup over, the plastic cups, you see the name Dart. That Dart was part of my community. Well, I called Dart offices and I asked for Raleigh Dart. And of course, his secretary did not put me through. And I tried again. And I left a message and there was no call back. At that time, we didn't have any internet or email or text messages that you could break through. You had to do it the old-fashioned way. You had to pick up the phone and call them. And then I tried, of course, to send a letter. Now, I wrote a handwritten letter, explained what I wanted, and I sent that to them. I got a phone call back, and it was amazing, but they said, we don't want any advertising. None whatsoever. I was selling radio at the time. So I wrote another letter back and told them that I wasn't looking for that. I just wanted a meeting. And finally, after about a month and a half of making this attempt to meet Raleigh Dart, I was given the opportunity to meet with him at 5 o'clock in the morning where he had coffee and breakfast every day. And for about the next 2 weeks, Mr. Dart and I had coffee at 5 o'clock in the morning. I would spend about a half hour with him, and then he would say, you've got to go now. I've got some business to attend to. But I got that half hour, a cup of coffee with him every day for a couple of weeks, and it was awesome. I learned a lot of things. Educate yourself. I still do that today. He told me to buy the Wall Street Journal. At that time, I did. I started getting a subscription to the Wall Street Journal. Nowadays, I don't do that. I read on my iPad. But every morning, I still do the same things. That was a local leader that was able to influence my life. Another one was Terry Hanks. Terry Hanks, who is he? Well, he was a gentleman that taught me that perseverance and belief in yourself was paramount. Mr. Hanks was a retired car salesperson up in Michigan. And he was still doing television ads all over the country, and that's how he made his money. But he was retired. He lived on a ranch, and one day he and his friends were sitting around playing cards, and one of his buddies dared him to buy the local Chevrolet dealership and turn it around because it was failing. He took that dare, and today he still runs, owns, and operates that. He should have retired, right? No. But the enthusiasm that he lives with and that he goes through life with is just amazing. So that's what this show is about. It's about helping people see that right down the street from you are local leaders who can influence you and help you and you can learn from. Just tap into them. If you're a young person, call up somebody. Find a mentor. Find that individual that can help you. Look at the people that we've had on this show already. Mayor of Valdosta, Scott Matheson, an incredible entrepreneur, politician, normal guy, just like you and me. Okay, so Coach Spurrier, you can just have a conversation with the man. Dr. Glenn Miller, his perseverance of driving back and forth for 7 years to get his doctorate from the University of Florida. Don't tell me that you don't have time to do something when a man can be like that while being a deputy with JSO. Last week, Doreen Wiebe, the incredible ability to become a superstar in real estate. Just when you started your life in Lebanon and Paris, and then you come here and you change careers and make things happen. Jennifer Meisenhelder, just an amazing engineer at the University of Florida. So these are people that we live next door to, and that's what this show is about. It's all about helping people just find those connections on a local level. We also have some classes coming up. I heard a great story this morning as I was driving down here. A young man was sharing his story with one of the people that I work with, and he was telling her that How to Win Friends and Influence People, the book from Dale Carnegie, is on his Kindle and in every other book rotation. She asked him, what does that mean? He said, I read multiple books a week, and every other book that I read is how to win friends and influence people. Just an amazing thing. Those principles that teach us about building confidence, interpersonal skills, communication, leadership, and managing stress are just absolutely incredible. And we give you that opportunity not only to read the book, but to take the class in person. And we have a couple of different areas that you can take that class. Coming up next week in Jacksonville, we start a program on Thursday night from 6 to 9:30 that you can enroll in. And we have openings in that class. Just go to www.dalecarnegie.com or jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com, I should say. Find that little button that says Find Classes. Click on that, find your class, and sign up. We also have another class coming back to Gainesville in September 21st at Hotel Indigo. Again, you can go to the same place, jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com, and sign up. It's an incredible opportunity to make a huge change in your life. And as we move forward, those things are vitally important. The other part of this podcast is that you can find it anywhere. We come to you on 39 different platforms, 37 audio platforms, being things like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and many more. We also come to you twice live on Facebook, as we are right now, but also we will be up on YouTube video after the show. It takes a little while to get to that point. But so you have 2 places to watch it live and 37 places to hear it live. So share this with other people. I was talking to a group yesterday of agricultural leaders from the Wedgeworth Leadership Institute at the University of Florida. And amazing stories about agriculture. And we're going to bring some of those people in to be part of this show too, because 99% of us don't know how that potato got from the farm to your plate. And you'll learn some of that like I did yesterday, which is just absolutely incredible. Some other upcoming shows that we have scheduled, we'll have Svein Dirkelbotten on coming up here in a couple of weeks, which Svein is the developer of Celebration Point. Interesting gentleman, engineer, plus graduate of the University of Florida, and a basketball player from there. So a lot of topics that we can talk with him about leadership. We'll have Carrie and Jeffrey Meldon on and talk about some of those delicacies of being a father-son partner and working for your dad and working with your son and leadership development. We'll have a great show with them. Dr. Matthew Olson from the University of North Florida. He's the director of the Taylor Leadership Institute at UNF. He'll be joining us in a future show. The guy that I called Chief Dan Robinson, I knew him when he was chief of police of a small city in Michigan. He now is a corporate individual that's going to share some of the differences between being a law enforcement leader and being a corporate leader and talk about that. So we have a lot of great shows coming up, and just like today's show, one of my favorite people, and spent a lot of time with him in my life, if we could bring Bob up, Robert J. Miller, Bob Miller Jr., a dear friend of mine who we went to college with a few weeks ago, Bobby. It's been
been a couple of weeks, for sure.
It's been a couple of weeks that we did that together. But we want to talk about leadership. We're going to talk a little bit about your dad, but we're going to go in reverse chronological order. So we're going to start with your the latest part of your life, and then we'll move it back to those college years and talk about your dad and some of the things that we both got to experience as young men. But share a little bit with us about what you do now, Bob, and what your background is.
First, thank you for having me on. It's great. It's great to be here, and it's great to see you again. I mean, I mean, the days go slow and the years go fast, and it has been a long time. So it's really good. I just want to say that first. It's really good. I
Thank you,
love your
Bob.
stories. I'm a big believer in Dale Carnegie. I have a few of the books. I remember when I first started my work career, I took one of the classes, I think in Novi or somewhere out here, and I really, really like it. And I do follow what you do. And your story about the meeting the guy from Dart at 5 in the morning was so awesome because I remember going back when we were, I was probably a freshman in college back then, and I needed to make some money. I needed a job, and talked to my dad. He knows people, and he just told me go over and knock on the door, company on Telegraph, and ask for the president. And I did. His name is Mike Ilitch, and
Ah,
they had Little Caesars was right on Telegraph in Southfield, and so I mentioned because you're right, you couldn't email him, you couldn't do any of that. He brought me right in his office and said, I appreciate your hustle. I'm like you, I appreciate you coming out here. And I got a job that day. I'm almost afraid to tell you how much I was making per hour back then. It wasn't much, but you know what? It was the story of persistence, like you were talking about with Dart. So I just really appreciated that story that you told. A couple of those are great. So what am I doing now? Well, I've always tried to remain. Leadership is a funny thing. It really is. It's not, I guess, something that I said. I'm a leader. Like I always say that managers will tell you what to do, and leaders get you to want to do it. And so I've led like that. I started. I had a corporate career. I really did at Dun& Bradstreet for 11, 12 years. I really enjoyed it. It was fun, and I was doing okay, but I was never happy. It was fun. It was great. So I decided if I could create a business where I'm helping people and making money, I would have it all. And so I started this foundation called Real Estate Donations USA almost 15 years ago, Bob. I can't believe it's been that long. With the idea that I got from, you hear about these commercials, donate your car and do all this.
right.
Well, not real estate. That's my
One eight
background.
hundred car for kids.
Cars for kids, right? I think they're out of Florida too, aren't they? Those guys.
I'm not sure.
Anyway, so I know a little bit about them. But and so I started this thing, and that was 15 years ago. And to date, I've raised over $4 million for charities. Some great ones: Habitat, Diabetes, American Cancer. So we contribute. So we raise money. Then most of what we give away to charitable causes, good charitable causes. So I do that. In between, I was a deputy mayor here in a township you're quite familiar with, Redford Township, and I was for 4 years here. And I'm also, like you, recently I started a podcast called Ordinary Heroes. And Ordinary Heroes is really about something similar to what you're doing. I want to, with the news being so negative all the time, and that's all you read.
Amen.
Negative, negative. This guy got shot, this, and bad, bad, bad. Politics. I'll never go back into it again. I want to take ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And that's how I came up with this idea for this podcast, and my wonderful host, Julie Jabiro. And so we bring my first guest, like, for example, was a veteran who did 8 combat tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. 8. And the stories and what a hero he is. And I wanted people to know that you can get up every day, feel good about yourself. The minute you turn on that news, you're going to feel, and from your background and everything, you have to start with positive energy. So you got to create positive energy and cut out negative energy. And so that's kind of what I've been doing. I'm just loving it to death.
What do you find the difference between leadership? Now, you talked about politics. You've been involved in sports. You deal with people that are heroes, and yet you've gone corporate to nonprofit. What are the differences in leadership styles that are needed as you transfer between all of those different platforms?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think when you're with corporate America, they sort of dictate what you do, all the time. And when you're on your own, whether it's a nonprofit or not, now nonprofits live under a different set of rules than everybody else. They do. And I'm what they call a IRS 501c3 charitable organization, which means if you donate something, you can get a tax break. So the leadership is totally different. Everything's on you. Like you're the quarterback, you're the pitcher. Everything's on you. So it took me a while to understand I'm gonna make mistakes, but those are just stepping stones to success. And when you're in corporate America, you can make mistakes and okay, whatever, your boss yells at you and all that. But when you're doing this is for real. Everything that you do, every bit of your life, kind of like what you do, is not what you do, it's who you are. It's who you are. And that's the way I'm living today. This is what I am. This is what I don't have a job. This is what I do. This is who I am. I help people. This is what I
Yes.
do. And and when you do that and you're selfless, people gravitate to you. People gravitate to you all the time. Well, man, how are you like that? Why do you do that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Why are you so nice to people? Why are you helping people and all that? Um, it was a story I learned. I was at a Tiger game a long time ago, and you remember Lem Barney. I was at a
Definitely.
game with Lem. He was really involved with the Fellowship of Christian Athletes at that time. And when we came out of the game, you get the various people that are homeless and whatever, and they're all on the street. He stopped and gave each one of them $1. Each one. I said, Lem, what are you doing, man? You do that? He goes, because I never know which one is an angel God put there to tempt me. So I help everybody. I learned a valuable lesson that day from that,
Wow.
not to judge people and do that. So I think leadership is a lot different than management. I'm not a big believer in management. I like leaders.
Yep.
That's what I'm
You
trying
know,
to.
this morning you were talking about that, and my wife reminded me about liking what you do. She was going off to work. She's a nurse. She was going off to work. I was getting ready to come here and get everything together, and I told her, "Man, I am just totally drained today." And she looked me right in the eye and said, "But you love what you do." And I said, "You got it." I mean, just that word turned around my attitude. I had a long day yesterday. Just that word turned around my attitude, and it was like, wow, let's move. You were talking about corporate and nonprofit. And
Mhm.
one of the things that I heard you say was that when you're working for yourself, you have a different impetus to get you going. You really have that motivation.
Mhm.
How do we get that into the employees? Why do you have to become a entrepreneur to have that attitude? Why can't we instill that into our employees in the corporate world so that we don't have those challenges?
Again, that's a really good question, and I don't know if there's a single answer that I know. Like for me, when I started out, I mean, obviously you're gonna eat what you hunt, and that motivates you quite frequently. So I always said to people, if you don't want to work 9 to 5 and you want your own business, plan on working 24/7, because that's just the way it rolls. And so for me, and I'm very self motivated, and so if you can take an employee, okay, and when you talk to an employee, and I almost sometimes, it's a tough word, because I feel like, okay, I'm the boss, you're an employee. I don't like that sort of thing. No, I'm here to help you to get to where you want to go. So I could talk to a person who's employed by me. I said, what do you want to do? What are your goals? What do you want to do? How much money do you want to make? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? All these questions. I'll help you get there, even if it's not with my company. I'll help you get there. You know, if an employer is not doing that, that employer, he or she is not showing leadership. Um, People don't leave jobs because they don't like it. They don't like who they work for,
Right. Yep. We
right?
find
They
that
don't
all the
like who
time.
they work for.
Yes.
And so I think you really got to get to know the employee, and if you can get them, I always think like when I was coaching baseball, and if you can get them to have the want tos and not the have tos, you got them. And too many people that live their life with the have tos. I have to go to work. I have to get paid. I got a mortgage coming up. I got this. I have to. I have to. I have to. I have to. Okay. Well, no, you don't have to. You can have the one. This is what I want to do. Okay. and then figure out what you want to do, then how to make it profitable, how to make it work, and do that. I mean, and do
Yes.
that. And so I talk all the time to especially young kids, about the choices that you make. God knows I'm probably like you. I've made a few bad ones in my day, I'll say that. But I sure have learned from them. But I think with employees, you have to get to know them. They can't just be an employee number. You have to go sit with them. And now with the pandemic, it's even tougher. I like to get in front of people. I like to talk to them. I'm a hands-on guy, and it's been tough during the pandemic. But that's what I would say. The big difference is you find out what their goals are. Know what their goals are. Know they have a wedding anniversary coming up. Know that all these things. When is their birthday? You lost your father. Boy, I'm really sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can do? Do you need a couple days off? Stuff like that. That's
You have to
what I
connect on a different level.
Mhm.
Connecting on a totally different level. Yesterday, I was speaking to this group of agricultural people from all over the state of Florida, and I asked them, if you were a leader or a boss to an individual, and that was their first day on their job, what are they going to say about you 40 years from now? And the reason I asked them, I was on a panel one time with a group of people, and the gentleman that spoke in front of me talked about his first boss and how he made such a difference in his life, how he wanted to quit the industry, and the boss sat him down, took him out for a beer and sat him down and told him what he saw in him. And this guy had a 40-year career with that company in that industry because of that boss. What are we doing to our people the first day on the job? What impression are we making? And will they remember us in a positive way 40 years from now?
That's the thing. You don't get that second chance to make the first impression, as they say.
No, you don't.
And if you bring in somebody in their first day, they go home and they're like, I don't know if I made the right choice here. I don't know if this is for me.
Big point.
And the person who hired him didn't do their job.
Yep.
Didn't do their job. And I 100% agree with you. You have to get to know them. And so they got to be part of a team. Everybody likes to be part of a team, not knowing they want to know they're on an island somewhere. They want to know somebody cares about them.
Yes,
If the
definitely.
person, I care about you. I want to see you successful. What are your goals? Where do you want to get to? You may not know them all now, but I'll help you. Don't worry about failure. Failure's part of it. Don't worry about it. I'll help you. As long as you hustle and as long as you're trying and making the effort. You never really fail as long as you're trying.
I know where you live, just not too far from an interstate that would get you to 75 and
Yep.
down this way. I encourage you to hop on 75 and head south sometime. And when you get to exit 384 and in Gainesville, Alachua County, get off, turn right, find your way to Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. We do our show from the coach's podcast room here at Gridiron Grill. And it's just an
I would
amazing.
love to do that. I was down there in March with younger brother Patrick, who's not so young anymore. He's got a place down in Fort Myers, but I'd love to do that with you, Bob. I would love to do that with you and kick it. I'd love it.
I
Love
learn
it.
something new every day when I come into this building. Just today I walked in and I noticed the keys from all the cities on the wall that he's gotten. Fantastic place. My point about leadership is one of the things that I learned when I had Coach Spurrier on my show was just the incredible recall and desire for the individuals that played for him. And also, in return, the way that they feel about him, not because of the successes they had on the field, not because of his name or the notoriety or being around somebody that is famous. Really, it was because of the impact he made on their lives. And that's the thing that stays with people forever. And that's what you're talking about, Bob, is that getting to know your employees and making a positive impact on their life.
That's so true. And a lot of things I did 16 years, believe it or not, of coaching. It's kind of in my blood, I think, a little bit from somewhere in the bloodline. Um, and one of the things that I used to talk to the kids about, and I'd say, who do you play for? And they'd name the school. Who do you play for? Well, coach, we play for you. Who do you play for? I'd play my mom and dad. And all of that, I would say, no, you play for each other. That's it. You might not remember your, hopefully you will, but I want you to create memories. So when you're 40 years old telling lies sitting in a bar about how great you were, you're gonna have great memories. And each one of my players that I've had, I have told them, just because you graduate doesn't mean I'm not your coach and I'm not your friend anymore. I follow them. Now I'm going to weddings of kids that have played for me that are getting married. And Coach Spurrier is so right on about that. That's the only way I would coach. If you do that, wins weren't at the top of our list at all. They weren't. They came though. They came. But you focus on the player and the individual. And I think all the great coaches do that. And the ones that just want to focus on, the wins or the money, I don't think they're
doesn't get it.
successful.
Bob, we're going to take a break here in a second for a couple of minutes. And if you remember the old Waylon Jennings, Hank Williams Jr. song, when there's a line that Waylon would said, Hank, let's talk about your daddy. So when we come back from this break, Bobby, let's talk about your daddy, okay?
All right, man. Look forward
Take a break.
We still hear it. The sound of victory. The joy of being part of something great. And while things may not be the same right now, we haven't gone anywhere.
If you bleed orange and blue, then Meldon Law is the firm for you.
Hello, Bob Ganzak for the Dale Carnegie course. Because of the great strength that we've had in the last couple of classes here, we are having another Dale Carnegie class starting September 21st, Tuesday night, the 21st, from 6 until 9:30 at Hotel Indigo. It's one of those things that's going to change your life. It's going to really give you the tools where you can improve at business, in your relationships, just in your love of life. So you will be able to sign up at jacksonville.dalecarnegie.com, find courses, find the one that is for September 21st in Gainesville. Hotel Indigo, 6 to 9:30. 8 weeks in a row, incredible energy, atmosphere. You'll love it. Sign up today for the Dale Carnegie class. Thank you.
Looking for more reasons to celebrate? We have them here at Celebration Point. Enjoy some of the newest additions to our already celebratory lineup, like Dave & Buster's, Les Macarons, and Prime and Pearl. There's always a reason to celebrate. Join us anytime for any occasion. Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate.
Welcome back to the Coaches Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill for Motivation U, the podcast. With me today is an old friend of mine that you're not old. It's just that it's been a long time that we've been friends.
Yes.
Bob Miller, Bob Miller Jr. And right before we went to break, I said, when we come back, Bob, let's talk about your daddy. Sometimes it's my opinion, and I don't know, and I'm going to ask an individual that does, that when your dad is a famous person and you have the junior attached to your name, that can be a lifelong challenge. And you are one of those individuals that have that. First of all, Bob, tell us about who your dad was, still is, as I say. He is still
Right.
that individual. It's not a was, though he passed away, and we do miss him dearly.
You
And
do.
then tell us what it's like to be a junior carrying that name, please.
Yeah, that's a really good question, I've started a book, and it's sort of evolving because first let me tell you a little bit about my dad, Bob Miller Senior, a guy who recruited you. My dad, was a great guy. I'll tell you, he was just well, he played Major League Baseball for 10 years with the Philadelphia Phillies, and he was part of a group called the Whiz Kids of 1950 that won the pennant. And thankfully, before he passed, boy, do I know a lot of stories that he told me that are just freaking incredible. That hope I can share one or two of them with you. And so when he was, and he's a World War II veteran, and when he finished playing baseball right around 1960, when he finished playing, he was in the insurance business with Chuck Davey. I think he was a lightweight fighter.
Yeah.
Boxer,
Former
they-
boxing commissioner of the state of Michigan, too. Yes.
Yeah. And he had an insurance company, New England Life. And so a lot of the former athletes went there because of their name and they know people and they sell them life insurance. And then he got a call from Lloyd Brazil, who is the baseball coach at the University of Detroit, now Detroit Mercy, asked him to be an assistant coach. And so he came on there for all of $200. And he was the assistant. I'm not sure he made much more than that anyway, but so he so he stayed there and he did that for a year or two, and Coach Brazil was killed in a automobile accident, and they asked my
Right
dad
next
take
to the
him-
field.
right next to the field, man, right next to the field on ice. Dad told me the story, and so my dad took it over in '63 and stayed until just a couple years before the program ended. Benny was 36 years, I think, that he stayed, and some of his he's the winningest by far Division I baseball coach in Michigan history. There's nobody right now even close to him in terms of wins, and that will stand for a while. So that's really good. And he was recently inducted into the Michigan Baseball Hall of Fame a couple months ago. He was really looking forward to this because it's just he's in 5 Hall of Fames. So he's in the Michigan Sports Hall of Fame. Now he's in the Michigan Baseball Hall of Fame, the Catholic League Hall of Fame, St. Mary's or Redford Hall of Fame, the Detroit Mercy Hall of Fame. He's in 5 Hall of Fames. But this is the one he really wanted because it was just baseball. And so he was inducted into that, and we had a great ceremony. He went in with another great athlete, Drew Henson,
Oh, yes.
out of Brighton High School in Michigan, played with the Yankees and signed a big contract. Steinbrenner signed him. And
Always will be a trivia guy is the guy that shared quarterback with Tom Brady at the University of Michigan.
I you know what? I asked him, I said, whatever happened to that guy that you were sharing the quarterback, that number 12, whatever happened to him? And he would just laugh at me. And what was really great, we went to this baseball game in Lansing, the Lansing Lugnuts. It's a really cool field up there. And it's, minor league, you and I played some those stadiums, and they're so much fun. And so out in left field, they have these nice plaques they put out there for my dad. And then just like 2 or 3 down from there was another one of his buddies, Ron Ostrike from Eastern. Who
Yes,
you
I remember Coach Ron. Yep.
Yep. And so I said, Dad, you're in a perfect place right here. You're with the buddies. But one of the things that I talked about my dad, I spoke when he was inducted, and I told I don't know if you were at his retirement party, but I told this little story. And my dad loved it. So I used it again. And when he retired, I said, well, he's a local guy from the Detroit area that did good. He pitched in college. He played professional baseball, made it to the World Series in 1950. Good fastball and a good curve. But enough about Robin Roberts. Stay here with our Bob Miller. And,
And Robin Roberts was your dad's one of his best friends. I mean, if not
Hall of
his
Fame.
best friend.
Yeah, Hall of Fame guy. And my dad, so I told that story again. I said, the thing about my dad that most people don't know that did not play for him, he had a great sense of humor. And he knew the only way to play baseball, he said, you got to play loose. He said, it's a hard enough game to play if you're tight. It's just like business, okay? A leader, if you got somebody on your team who's tight, muscles are tight, they're worried, they're this, they can't perform. And
Yes.
so I think what my dad taught me through, it's helped me in my business career, is that, look, you can't play that way. You got to be loose. And he kept us loose, as you know, he did. And he had a great sense of humor.
Incredible
kept us-
sense of humor.
Right. He had a great sense of humor. And I think he passed that along to me, and that helped me in my coaching career too. But so he just had a wonderful career. And I know this was about 3 months before he died. And he said, Bobby, let me tell you something. He said, I lived a charmed life. I got to live my childhood dream and play professional baseball. I mean, he said, I'm a happy man.
Yeah.
So what more can anybody want? You're doing what you want to do. I'm doing what I want to do, because my dad said, do what you want to do. Don't worry about the money. Do what you want to do. It'll come. Don't worry about it. And it has. It's been great.
Who are some of the people that your dad talked about in his life that shaped his leadership? Because your dad was a man's man. I mean, he was a big personality. He was a big
Yep.
man, 6'3", probably 235, 240, big man. But he also was a big personality and had that booming voice.
Yeah.
Who were some of the individuals that he shared with you that shaped his leadership style?
Well, I think the big one that comes to the top of the list is Bob Callahan, the athletic director, Bob Callahan. He loved, which is now Callahan Hall at U of D, but he loved Bob Callahan, his style. He loved his skipper with the Phillies, Eddie Sawyer, because he said his leadership style was, when you have good talent, let them play. Don't get in their way. Don't get in their way. And my dad said, I took that a long way when I was at U of D, and we played with some really good players. And he, maybe left a guy in too long pitcher and that, but he goes, where am I going to go? This is the best I got. So I think his Eddie Sawyer for sure, Bob Callahan for sure, Robin Roberts, who coached at South Florida, as you know, and his nickname was the Big Schmo, because he was the main guy. And my dad told me that when he talked with Robbie, that Robbie always said talent's going to win overall, unless talent doesn't work hard. And talent doesn't win. And you get a lesser team will beat you, like Kalamazoo did to us.
Yes.
When you, right, with a 9-0 lead. But and so I think those were his real heroes. He had many friends. His one good friend is still alive that Teddy Kazansky. We played with his son, Teddy Jr.
Yep, Ted Jr.
And he loved those. But I think those guys there, but I would really say Bob Callahan and Eddie Sawyer were the biggest influences on him in terms of his leadership, because I said to him, I said, Coach, I mean, you're all state in football, basketball, baseball. You went to U of D on a basketball scholarship and never played.
Yes.
And you want to hear a funny story he told me about recruiting? If you see Coach Spurrier, tell him this. He will laugh so hard. So my dad, after 1 year at U of D, okay, and he had a good year. He pitched in Youngstown that summer, and he had a great year. And they didn't have a draft or anything, so the Phillies or the Tigers were going to sign him. And so his dad was his agent, his police officers, right? This high-powered agent. So they offered my dad a certain amount of money, wasn't a whole lot. So he signs his contract to play with the Phillies, right? And this is like in September. So he goes and tells Lloyd Brazil, the coach, I just signed this contract. He said, shh, well, don't tell anybody yet. I need you next year. And, and he pitched the next season for U of T.
Oh, wait, they're probably going to have a. Oh, my goodness. The NCAA will probably try to come down on him now for some
Right.
some violation. You know, one of the I remember a story your dad told me that I asked him. I said, "Well, it was when we had in 2008 when we had his party for him. If you remember that, we all gathered at the school and had that party for him. And I asked him, I said, what was the one thing in your career that really stood out? And he threw me way off base, and he probably shared this with you at a time or two. He said, the thing that really made me know that I made it was the time that I brought my mom and dad into a game in Chicago. I was able to pay for their room and fill up the tub with beer.
Yep,
And
true story.
and he said, when I was able to do that, that's the thing that made me know that I did something in my life. I was like, I was expecting, pitching the fourth game of the 50 World Series or, whatever else he was going to tell me. But that's who he was. That's who he is.
Yep. He was a giver, and I think I got some of that from him. It's really funny about my dad, and leaders need to know this, okay? And Dale Carney brings us out, winning friends and influencing people. If you want to do that, talk about them, not about you. Talk about them. And my dad was always like that. I'd have to pry out some of these stories or read the scrapbook his mother said. I said, Coach, do you know, I think it was in 53, do you know you got 4 hits in a game at Wrigley Field and pitched a shutout? Yeah, good stuff that day, blah, blah, blah. He's the only pitcher in Wrigley Field history to do that. Yep. He didn't even know it. Little things like I pried on because he went to the movie The Natural was made after his teammate Eddie Wakis, who was shot in Edgewater Beach Hotel in Chicago, and that's the Robert Redford part of The Natural. That's where that came from. And
wow.
I did. He still knew the girl's name, who shot him. Said she's crazy girl, but he always wanted to know, how you doing? So what's going on? He was the down home guy you could sit on your porch, have a beer with, and talk. He loved to talk baseball and pitching.
Oh, that's not true. That is not true.
No?
You said you could have a beer with.
Or
there was never a beer.
Wine, but
there was never a beer in your dad's menu. It was always a few beers.
A few beers. Yeah, that's true. I stand corrected, Bob. You're right. It was always a few beers. And the thing about Coach is, and I got some of this too, his sense of recall. I mean, if I mentioned Bob Ganzak, he would bring up your arm from right field. He would bring up it. He recalled guys at bats. He told me the story about one of your teammates, Jimmy Brunetto, who was crying in the hallway at Callahan Hall because his dad wouldn't leave him alone, and he sat on a stairwell with them. And his sense of recall for every player, because every kid he recruited like you was very important to him. He did not take it lightly. Every player was important. Bob Ganzak's important. Tim Murphy from your school, high school, was important. All these guys, whether they made it or not. But he always wanted to know, what are you going to do with your career? He'd be very proud of you right now, Bob. He'd be very proud of you for what you're doing. I guarantee you.
I still remember my first meeting. We had like 10 or 11 freshmen in my class, and he took us down into the dungeon, downstairs into the old basketball gym down there where we had the batting cage. And I can still remember his opening talk to us in the fall of 1973 when he said, you're not going to be judged by who you are or anything else in your life. You're going to be judged by what's in your back pocket. And he said, that's an unfortunate thing. That's the way people judge you. So you have to cut through all of the other things in order to make an impact on people's lives. And that has stayed with me my whole life. What he was saying to us was, Jerry Cyril, go to class, get your education. You have an opportunity to do that. Yet he always thought about that. And Bob, we got about 10 minutes to go here, 9 minutes. I do want to get to it. What is carrying that same name that you have? What has it been to walk in the shoes, and what advice would you give other people who are living in their dad's or mom's shoes because of carrying that name of a famous person?
Be yourself. Don't try to be your dad. Don't have to wear the same number. You don't have to have the same anything. You got to be yourself. I'm very proud of who I am. But if I had a nickel for every time somebody asked me, well, your dad played didn't you want to play pro baseball? I said, yeah, of course I did. Every young boy did. I only lacked a couple things: hit, run, throw, and catch. Other than that, I would have made it. But my biggest recommendation is you be proud, which I am, but don't get caught up because you're always going to feel like you're a junior. And I think UD is the only one that still calls me junior because it's not in my name. And UD does sometimes, but I would say you got to be your own man. You got to be your own man. And I know my dad was proud of that. He was the type of guy, what you did, he didn't interfere with. Even when I was coaching baseball, I'd have him come and talk, but he never say, you got to do this, or you got to do that, or you got to do that. He wanted me to set my own pace. And I would tell everybody who is related to a famous person, you have to be yourself. Be proud, but build your own legacy. Build your own, or else you're just going to wallow away is what's going to happen, I found out recently, I don't know if you know this, I have a cousin that I didn't, because I said to my dad, where did you get all this talent from? So there's a family tree done, my cousin did. My cousin is John Smoltz.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so, because my dad said he was good friends with John Smoltz's dad, Skipper Smoltz. He played on Polish Century and club and do all this stuff. Well, what I found out was my dad's mother's sister married, and you'll like this, married a Gehringer.
Oh, my goodness.
So Charlie Gehringer is in the tree, and Smoltz is a direct cousin, which I never knew. And so there is talent in
Definitely
the family.
a baseball family.
It is. But back to what you said, and it's a really good question, and I'm going to write about it because people ask me about it all the time, about, didn't you want to be your dad? And when I played at UAD, my freshman year was very, very difficult. As a matter of fact, after my freshman year, I told my dad, I don't want to stay here. I'm never going to play. I want to go somewhere. I want to play baseball. And he said he apologized. He says, really my fault. I was trying to protect you. I need to give you a chance and go out there and let you fail on your own or succeed on your own. And after that, I did all right. But then you have to have your teammates buy into you that you belong on this team. You can help this team. You're not just here because you're coach's son. I said, I don't really want to ride with you in the car after my freshman year. I want to be on the bus with the guys. And if we're going to have a few pops when we're down in Florida and all that, I don't want to tell you about who's drinking or who's this or at Carson Newman and all that. He respected that. And you have to, as a coach's famous person's son, you have to get that. You have to get that. And it's more difficult than a regular person.
Because that happens a lot in business nowadays. I get a lot of individuals, and they'll ask me that question like, oh man, I work for my dad, or especially if they have the same first and last name, where they're, as you say, a junior, and it's not in your name. And it's difficult. My advice to them always is, my dad had a pretty big personality in our world, and you don't have to follow in his footsteps. You have to learn how to create your own footprint. And
That's right.
And that's what I said to my son as he was coming up. Everybody would ask, are you going to play baseball? You're going to play baseball? My son didn't like baseball. He wasn't crazy about it. He liked different sports. And do what you want to do. Create your own world. Make your own footprint.
Right. You see, everybody's blessed with something. Everybody's blessed by God with something. You got to find that something. It may not be baseball. It may not be whatever. But find it because you have it. And I think my dad always encouraged us to do that. It just happens we were, my brothers and that, we were athletic. My sister really isn't, although she likes to play tennis. But you're absolutely right, Bob. You're absolutely right on. Make your own footprint. You have to make your own footprint. You have to.
So your older brother Tom, your younger brother Patrick, they were, they played sports also in baseball, and what are they doing now? How have they elevated their world? I see
my
Patrick
brother-
on Facebook all the time. So
I know. Patrick's living the dream, man. I'll start. My older brother, Tom, he's retired. He was a postal worker in Plymouth. And so he's retired now. And he actually lives in a place he lives right behind Churchill High School. There, and he's lived there for all these years. So he's very comfortable, and he likes living there, and he's retired and playing golf and
perseverance, just the same job, postal worker every day,
Yep. Yep.
perseverance.
every day. A grind.
How about Patrick?
And Patrick, he's a financial planner. He has been for a long time. He's got his own business, and he's got a broker, but he's got a beautiful home that he lives out on the lake. He's got a condo down in Fort Myers, and he just loves it. He never had kids, which is fine. And he's a big giver, and he coached a little bit. I don't think it was really his niche at Wall Lake Century. He coached a little bit for a few years, but Patrick is doing very, very well financially. But the great thing I love I still call him Young Patrick. I know you got Patrick. Young Patrick is that you would never know if this guy makes $100 a year or $30 million a year. You'd never know it. Either one. You wouldn't know. He treats everybody you know what I mean? He treats everybody the same. He would love to see you. He'd invite you to his tiki bar, and here, let me get you a drink, and let me get, that's just the kind of guy he is. So they're doing, my sister Mary's doing very well. She's still in the computer business, and she's living out near my brother Pat. So, and she's doing real well too. So, we're all hanging in there. We're all hanging in there.
I don't ask those questions because of, to rekindle family things, although it's fun to hear about that. It's just neat to hear what the leadership of Robert J. Miller Sr. meant to his own kids. I think of, 36 years of coaching baseball at the University of Detroit. What an amazing amount of young men he made an impact on. But it's not only them, it's their kids and their family that he impacted. Because I know what your dad taught me. I taught to my kids, and that's an amazing thing.
Well, with my dad, and he never made any money at UAD. I mean, that was, he never made any money.
It was free.
It was just about free. And, Chuck Davies say, hey, you got to hustle here a little bit. We need you here. But his love was baseball and those kids. And for every year, I can't imagine how many players would have played for him. A lot. But his leadership, he'd say, Bobby, you don't have to tell somebody that you're successful. They'll know it. You don't have to tell them. They'll know.
Bob,
And,
I really appreciate you being on here with us today.
man, I appreciate you.
It was absolutely wonderful. The one thing that sticks, and many things stick with me, but what we can take to our audience is that managers tell you what to do, and leaders make you want to do it. And that's an incredible thing for us to learn. I appreciate you, and I look forward to catching up. I'll join you on your podcast sometime, and we can continue the conversation.
Yes. Appreciate all your listeners. I am going to get with you. We're doing a memorial golf outing for Coach next year with all of your baseball teammates around his birthday in June. We're setting that whole thing up right now for a old guy to play golf. So I'll keep you posted on that. And it's just really good talking to you. I appreciate you and your show, and I can't wait to come down there and sit with you in that room right there and have lunch with you.
Coach's podcast room here at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, an incredible place. And if you're ever traveling down 75, I live 1 mile off of 75. Just let me know, exit 22 in Georgia. Good to see you, Bobby.
Man. All right,
Take care, my friend.
Thank you very much. Enjoy your day.
Right.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, that wraps up another show here of take these headphones off for a moment so I don't have to listen to the other side of the fence. It wraps up another show of Motivation U, the podcast, an incredible day of talking with Coach Bob Miller about his dad, about his leadership, and I found it really interesting to see the dichotomy of the non-for-profit and corporate world, and how we can really create a world within the corporate world where people really want to work. And Bob mentioned a few things. Get to know your employees. A big part of leadership. We teach that in the Dale Carnegie class, is that, we call it an interview in our leadership for trainers, leadership training for managers class, where you have that interview where you really sit down and get to know your employees on a different view and a different level. Upcoming, remember, Dale Carnegie class coming to Jacksonville next Thursday at the World Financial Group building on Phillips Highway, and also coming to Hotel Indigo in September. Please sign up now. Don't delay. Don't make that something that you're going to put off till next year, or put off to when the time is better. There's no better time than to improve yourself than right now. I mean, I always hear people say, I don't have the time. And then you hear a story about Dr. Glenn Miller, who raised a family, was a JSO SWAT member, and took 7 years to get his doctorate from the University of Florida in education. An amazing thing. So I don't want to hear about procrastination or that you don't have the time to do it. It's your life. Make the time to make an impact on yourself. And that impact that you make on yourself will in turn make an impact on your team, on your employees, on your fellow employees, on your children, on your parents, on your sisters, your brothers. Make that impact and invest in yourself. We all should invest about 5% of our yearly income in ourselves anyways. Don't wait for somebody else to do it. It's your life, your choice. Make a decision and go ahead and do that. So from the Coaches Podcast Room at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, I'm Bob Ganzak. Have a great week.